This research paper presents a novel multiscale fracture model that integrates peridynamic enrichment with finite elements within an adaptive partition of unity framework. This approach enables the capture of multiscale behavior by leveraging different physical models, such as classical linear elasticity globally and local zones where fractures occur. The peridynamic model is employed to simulate crack growth in a subdomain containing the crack tip, while the partition of unity method provides the necessary boundary data for the peridynamic simulation. The subdomain for the peridynamic simulation is adaptively chosen to include the current crack tip and nearby features that influence crack growth. This approach builds upon previous work, which introduced the combined peridynamic partition of unity simulator. Here, the authors focus on experimental validation of the proposed method, comparing simulation results with experimental data. By leveraging the compatibility of peridynamic and classical material models, as well as the methods required for combining them, the authors achieve high accuracy in capturing fracture growth. The peridynamic model interpolates between linear elastic energy for small strains and surface energy associated with displacement jumps, thereby sidestepping surface effects associated with non-scaled standard peridynamic formulations. The adaptive strategy for choosing the peridynamic subdomain allows for good agreement between experiment and simulation, with larger fixed peridynamic subdomains resulting in less accurate crack paths. This approach differs from existing methods, which introduce an interface between the involved models and discretizations, potentially causing problems. In contrast, the global-local enrichment-based coupling approach separates the models on independent discretizations, essentially a hierarchical coupling technique. The paper provides a comprehensive review of the preliminaries of classical continuum mechanics, partition of unity method, and peridynamic theory, before presenting the experimental validation results. The paper introduces a novel combined simulator that integrates the partition of unity method, PUM, and peridynamics, PD, to model material behavior. PUM is a mesh-free method used for discretizing partial differential equations, utilizing local approximation spaces attached to partition of unity functions. This method is employed in the Galerkin method to solve the equations of linear elasticity, resulting in a finite-dimensional ansatz space comprising polynomial functions and problem-specific basis functions known as enrichments. These enrichments can be either analytically given or numerically computed. The PUM is utilized to solve the equation of linear elasticity, which is defined by the Cauchy stress tensor and the weak formulation of the equation. A significant advantage of PUM is its ability to guarantee a stable basis, independent of the applied enrichments. Peridynamics, a non-local generalization of classical continuum mechanics, is used to simulate growing cracks and fractures. The equation of motion in PD is defined by the pairwise force density, which encodes the PD material model. The bond-based softening model is employed, where the pairwise force density is determined by the derivative of the pairwise force potential. The paper uses a specific PUM presented in a previous work and runs all experiments with the PUMA software framework. The PD material model is defined by the energy release rate in Young's modulus, with Poisson's ratio fixed at 1/3 for plane strain. This combined simulator offers a powerful tool for modeling complex material behavior and simulating fracture mechanics. The authors propose a combined PUM-PD simulator, where the global problem is solved using the partition of unity method, PUM, and the local problem is solved using peridynamics, PD. This global local enrichment method involves solving the global linear elasticity problem with PUM to provide boundary data for the local PD problem. The updated crack path is then extracted from the local PD solution and modeled with standard crack enrichments in the global PUM simulation. In this quasi-static simulation, the authors update the boundary data and crack path at certain load steps, rather than running both methods concurrently as planned for dynamic simulations. The numerical results are compared against experimental data from the three-point bending experiment by Ingrafia et al., using 3 cases with different parameters for the initial length and position of the crack. The discrete simulation parameters are summarized in Table 2, and the mesh for the partition unity method and the discrete PD nodes within the PD region are showcased. The experimental crack path is extracted from the corresponding figures in the reference paper using Web Plot Digitizer. The authors compare their results to experimental data as well as to the results presented in a previous paper, which coupled the finite element method with peridynamics. Some uncertainties are introduced when extracting the crack path coordinates, and perfect agreement between their results and those of the previous paper is not anticipated. The authors present results for case I, using a similar rectangle for the PD region as used in the previous paper, and investigate the feasibility of using a smaller PD region. They observe that the simulated crack path diverges from the experimental crack path over time. The combined PUM-PD simulator is demonstrated through simulation results for case 2. A visual representation of the simulator is provided, showcasing the displacement magnitude of the global PUM simulation at the second to last load step as the background, with the PD region indicated by a black box. In the foreground, the final time step of the PD simulation is displayed, where PD nodes are colored by damage. The obtained crack from the previous load step is represented by a blue line, while greenish and yellow nodes indicate areas of bond softening. A comparison is made between the experimental crack path for case 2 and simulated crack paths using the FEM-PD approach and the author's approach. The experimental crack path is extracted from figure 5.5 in 3, using web plot digitizer. The FEM-PD approach yields a simulated crack path that closely follows the experimental crack path, with the crack tip aligning with the experimental crack tip. In contrast, the author's approach initially aligns with the experimental crack path but later diverges, reaching the void at a different position. Notably, the authors employ a similar nodal spacing as in 23 for the coarse mesh, but their PD region is approximately 4 times smaller. A detailed table of simulation parameters is provided for the discretization in time and space for case I, case 2, and case 3, including force, time steps, node spacing, horizon, and final time. Figure 3 illustrates the discretization of the two models, where the black mesh represents the partition of unity method simulation of the global problem for case 2, and the blue dots denote the discrete peridynamics nodes within the PD region. The authors validate their approach for simulating crack growth using a coupled phase field, PF, and peridynamics, PD, method through 2 case studies, case I and case 3. In case I, where there are no holes, the experimentally obtained crack path is compared to the simulated crack path using the author's approach. Figure 4a demonstrates that the simulated crack path closely follows the experimental crack path, with the gray box representing the PD domain used in a previous study, 23. Figure 4b illustrates the simulated crack path with the moving PD region, where the light blue region at the crack tip converges to dark blue over time. In case 3, the experimental crack path is compared to simulated crack paths using both the FEM-PD approach and the author's approach. Figure 7a shows that the FEM-PD approach closely follows the experimental crack path until the crack kinks, whereas the author's approach more accurately captures the curvy shape observed in the experiment. However, both simulation approaches enter the void at different positions than observed in the experiment, which can be attributed to differences in the coupling approaches and the use of dynamic PD simulation. Figure 7b illustrates the simulated crack path using the author's approach with the moving box in blue, where the boxes converge from light blue to dark blue over time. The authors emphasize the importance of adaptively exchanging information between the PF and PD domains, depending on the crack's proximity to voids or domain boundaries. In case 3, with a longer initial crack closer to the voids, the authors had to reduce the exchange of information to every load increment, and employ a different scheme for running the PD simulation to achieve comparable results to the FEM-PD approach. This underscores the need to adapt the coupling scheme based on the specific problem configuration. The page visually represents the PUM displacement field for the global problem in case 2 at the second to last load step, with the black box signifying the current PD box within the sequence of moving PD boxes. In the foreground, the final step of the local problem is shown, featuring the current crack path in white and the PD damage advancing the initial crack path in color. This path is extracted and fed into the next load step of the global problem as the current crack. Figure 6a illustrates the experimental obtained crack path for case 2 from 3, alongside the initial crack as a dotted black line. The gray box represents the PD domain used in 23. The green line signifies the extracted crack path for case 2 using web plot digitizer from 23. The line demonstrates the simulated crack path for a similar nodal spacing as used in 23, while the blue line indicates a refined nodal spacing utilizing the proposed approach. Figure 6b showcases the simulated crack path with the proposed approach in red, and the moving PD region with the crack tip position. The light blue region at the crack tip is the initial square region. The box color transitions from light blue at the beginning to dark blue for the region used in the last simulation, providing a clear visual representation of the progression of the crack path. For simplicity, only one simulated crack path is plotted. This research validates the combined partition of unity method, PUM, and Peridynamics, PD, simulator against experimental data, building on the author's previously proposed approach. The validation employs 3 distinct experimental setups, varying in the number of holes and A and B parameter values. Results demonstrate that the combined PUM-PD method accurately simulates crack paths, comparable to those obtained via finite element method and peridynamics coupling. Notably, the use of a smaller, moving PD region reduces computational time while maintaining accuracy. However, the research highlights remaining challenges in achieving a fully automated combined PUM-PD simulator. Key areas for development include automated identification of the PD region and extraction of the crack path from the PD damage field. The authors propose integrating stress-based or strain-based damage models to identify the PD region and machine learning-based detection of the interface region for coupling local and non-local models. They also suggest the theta-simplified medial axis algorithm for extracting the crack path and the marching cubes algorithm for efficiently extracting isolines of the damage field. The study emphasizes the crucial exchange of information between global and local problems, particularly as the crack grows. This exchange is vital for maintaining simulation accuracy, with more frequent exchanges necessary when the initial crack is closer to the void. Ultimately, this research advances the development of a more efficient and accurate method for simulating fracture mechanics problems using PUM and PD. A novel fracture multiscale model is developed by integrating the partition of unity method, PUM, with peridynamics, PD, to simulate dynamic brittle fracture. This approach leverages the strengths of both methodologies in capturing crack growth and failure mechanisms in materials. Traditional finite element methods face challenges in modeling fracture, including limitations in capturing non-local interactions and complex geometries. Peridynamics, a non-local, non-convex, and dynamic approach, addresses these limitations by modeling material failure through bond breakage. However, coupling PD with traditional finite element methods has been a significant challenge. The proposed model resolves this by using the PUM to couple PD with the finite element method, enabling a more accurate representation of crack growth and failure. This approach can model complex geometries and large deformations, making it a viable alternative to existing methods. A comparison with experimental results demonstrates good agreement, validating the proposed approach. However, further work is needed to fully automate the interaction between the PUM and PD code and to extend the model to 3-dimensional simulations. Future research directions include additional experimental validation and applying the model to other types of materials and failure mechanisms. The Para-PX code and simulation input files are available for further development and validation, providing a foundation for advancing the field of fracture modeling. This research paper presents a comprehensive list of methodologies and findings on the subject of quantum computing, focusing on the development of novel algorithms and their implications for future technologies. The paper begins by outlining the current state of quantum computing, highlighting the challenges posed by decoherence and error correction. The authors then delve into the development of new quantum algorithms, which are designed to overcome these challenges through the use of quantum error correction codes and decoherence-free subspaces. These algorithms have significant implications for quantum cryptography, quantum simulation, and quantum optimization problems. A key aspect of the paper is its exploration of the relationship between quantum computing and classical computing. The authors discuss how quantum algorithms can be used to solve certain classical problems more efficiently than classical algorithms, while also examining the limitations of quantum computing in terms of scalability and practicality. The paper also touches on the role of quantum computing in the context of quantum information science, emphasizing the importance of understanding quantum entanglement and quantum teleportation. The authors provide detailed explanations of these phenomena, as well as their potential applications in quantum communication and quantum computing. In conclusion, this research paper offers a thorough examination of the current state of quantum computing, including its challenges, methodologies, and potential applications. It serves as a valuable resource for researchers and stakeholders seeking to understand the complexities and opportunities presented by this rapidly evolving field.